Have you ever wondered how cybersecurity professionals get inside the minds of the world's most sophisticated hackers? Today, we're doing just that. We're going to deconstruct a cyber attack piece by piece and show you the playbook security experts use to track elite state-sponsored groups and stop them dead in their tracks.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll profile our suspect, a very real, very dangerous Russian cyber unit. Then, we'll open up the playbook threat hunters use to track them. After that, we'll start connecting the clues, building a full blueprint of their attack, and finally, we'll see why this whole framework is such a game changer for digital defense. All right, so every good investigation needs a suspect. And for our case study today, we're not talking about some lone wolf hacker in a basement. We are looking at a highly organized, well-funded, and seriously dangerous group operating on the global stage. The group in our sights is GRU Unit 29155. Now, that's a specialized unit inside Russia's military intelligence agency. So let's be clear, these aren't just hackers, these are soldiers, and their battlefield is cyberspace. So, what does their profile tell us? Well, this is a state-sponsored group, which means they have government backing, big budgets, and their mission is straight-up espionage and sabotage. They're incredibly active, but here's what's really interesting. Alongside all their custom secret malware, they often use common off-the-shelf tools like Nmap and Netcat. And that's not by accident. It's a deliberate tactic to blend in with all the normal network traffic, making their attacks way, way harder to spot.
Okay, so we have our suspect. But how do investigators actually track a group like this? Well, they use a universal playbook, a kind of toolkit that lets security pros everywhere speak the same language when they're describing an attacker's behavior.
And the absolute foundation of this playbook is a concept called TTPs. That stands for Tactics, Techniques, and Procedures. You can think of it as the DNA of a cyber attack. It's not about one specific virus or tool. It's about understanding the attacker's entire methodology, their whole game plan, from start to finish.
And where are all these TTPs organized? They live in something called the MITRE ATT&CK framework. This thing is huge. It's a massive public knowledge base that's built from real-world observations of thousands of cyber attacks. It is, for all intents and purposes, the definitive encyclopedia of hacker behavior.
The framework is organized into a really clear hierarchy. It all starts with tactics. That's the why, the attacker's ultimate goal, like reconnaissance. Then you have techniques. That's the how they achieve that goal, like using active scanning. And finally, you get to the procedures. That's the nitty-gritty, the specific tool they used, like running Nmap. See how it lets us go from a high-level goal down to a very specific, detectable action?
So how do analysts actually use this framework in a real investigation? Well, they start by looking for the digital breadcrumbs an attacker leaves behind. Their job is to take every single one of those clues and map it back to a specific tactic, technique, or procedure in the ATT&CK framework. The investigation begins.
Let's say the first clue points to the tactic of resource development. Makes sense, right? Before you launch an attack, you need a base of operations. And a key technique here is to acquire infrastructure.
And what does that mean in the real world? Well, the framework tells us that a common procedure is for attackers to rent virtual private servers. They'll often get them from sketchy providers where they're basically untraceable. This is step one, building their attack platform. Okay, next, the investigation finds evidence of someone probing the target's network. Now that the attackers have their infrastructure set up, they're looking for a way in. This maps perfectly to the reconnaissance tactic and specifically the active scanning technique, where they're just looking for any digital weaknesses.
And boom, this brings us right back to our suspect. Intelligence analysis shows that aggressive scanning is a classic hallmark of GRU Unit 29155. They use it for enumeration, which is just a fancy word for creating a detailed map of a target's users, computers, and all their network resources. The behavior is a perfect match. The case is building. As investigators gather more and more evidence, the blueprint of the attack starts to become crystal clear. More complex behaviors start filling in the picture, and you start to see these unique signatures that can point to one specific group. So let's add another piece to our puzzle, back under that resource development tactic. Attackers need weapons, right? And in cyberspace, those weapons are software exploits. So here, we see the technique of obtaining, stealing, or just plain buying those exploits.
Now this detail right here, it reveals something critical. Analysis shows that GRU Unit 29155 tends to acquire their exploits, not build them from scratch. This is a huge distinction.
Other state-sponsored groups are famous for crafting their own custom tools. This preference for buying or stealing becomes a kind of behavioral fingerprint, and it helps analysts tell this group apart from all the others.
So we've profiled our suspect, we've mapped their behaviors, but what's the point of all this digital detective work? Well, this is the exact moment where analysis turns into active defense.
And that is the key question, isn't it? You've spent all this time creating this beautiful, detailed blueprint of an adversary's TTPs. So, now what? How does that actually help you protect anything? This blueprint is where the magic happens. First, it creates a standard language, so security teams all over the world are on the same page. This lets them build defenses against specific techniques, not just random bits of malware. It lets them run realistic training drills. And, crucially, it helps with attribution, linking an attack to a known group, like ATT&CK, which, by the way, is just another common name for the same GRU-linked actor.
You see, at the end of the day, these advanced attackers aren't invisible. They follow a playbook, and that playbook always leaves a trail. The MITRE ATT&CK framework is the map that lets us follow it. So that really leaves us with one final thought. If every attacker leaves clues behind, the real question is, what clues are you equipped to find?
If you enjoyed this deconstruction, please subscribe and click the like button. Your support is a huge help and lets us keep producing these explainers. Thanks for watching.